What's going on, everybody? I'm John, and I decided to do this on the 2007 NBA betting scandal. So, just a little introduction. History of sports gambling. America's pretty had a pretty on and off again relationship with it, but it's been traced back to the early 1800s and officially around the early 1900s when like official gambling houses started to come to fruition. But it really started to take off with the growth of American baseball. And there was a lot of corruption during that time. So, like I said, kind of on and off again. And then Nevada officially legalized it in 1949. And now you fast forward to today, it's legal in 30 states. And as of last year, the sports betting industry as a whole brought in $4.3 billion, which is a almost 180% increase from the previous year. Um, so, what drives people to do it? The entertainment factor of it makes games more interesting. When you do bet on a game, it makes it fun to watch. I also think that when you do it, it teaches you kind of a more respect for the game that you're watching. And then obviously money is one of the biggest factors. For those of you that don't sports bet, it's really easy to make money really fast, but it's easier to lose it even quicker. It's not for the case. So the 2007 NBA betting scandal involved Tim Donaghy. He was an NBA referee from the years of 1994 to 2007. He was arrested in 2007 for wire fraud and transmitting wagering information through interstate commerce. After he was suspended from the NBA, he went on to serve 15 months in federal prison. And so, kind of the story behind it was so he was a referee, and around 2003 is when he started to bet. He was betting on other games outside of basketball, college football, baseball, stuff like that. And then two of his buddies from high school kind of came and contacted him and said, we want to bet on the NBA. And because Tim had a master schedule of all the refs who were reffing each game, he would feed them picks and then they would go and bet on it. And Tim would make $2,000 per correct pick. But it was actually found out that the guy who was actually betting the picks himself was betting almost $3 million per pick. And it was said that they bet 47 games together and they had a record of 37-10. And once again, for anybody that doesn't know or isn't involved in sports betting, that's almost an 80% winning rate, which is impossible, nearly impossible. But throughout this time, it was said that Tim himself has actually said multiple times, and he stands by that he never himself fixed an NBA game. The league has come out and said that they have also found that to be correct, and they've also said that Tim was the sole person in this. So yeah, for relevant cases, the first one I chose was the 1999 Chicago White Sox, more commonly known as the Chicago Black Sox. And this was when 8 people on that team conspired with people outside of the MLB to throw the 1919 World Series against the Cincinnati Reds. So basically, one of the players approached somebody in organized crime and basically told them that he would throw the game for $20,000 each game. And the guy on the team was then able to get 7 other people on his team to do this, and they wound up going on to lose that series, 5 games to 4, and none of the people were actually charged with anything. But the commissioner at the time, he came out with a quote and basically said, nobody involved in this type of activity will ever play baseball again. And that's exactly what happened. Those people never stepped foot on the field again. And they're now, there's a bunch of stuff on it. They're now known as like 8 men out, which are the 8 people that conspired to do this. And I chose this case just because, I don't know, it kind of shows that corruption in sport has been going on for ages. And I'm sure it's been going on well before that. But this was really huge, and I think that it still affects the NBA, or not the NBA, the MLB today. Next was the Toledo point shaving scandal, and this happened between the years of 2004 and 2006. 2 people involved in organized crime basically approached people on the Toledo basketball and football team and asked them for inside information. They offered them 500, as little as $500 per pick that they gave them. And eventually, it was found out those people all had to go to a trial, and the 2 people that were involved in the organized crime were arrested. And I chose this case because I just think it shows how easy it is to convince people. I mean, $500, like, these kids work their whole lives to play sports in college, and to throw it away like that is pretty interesting. And the last case I chose was Calvin Ridley. This is the most recent. If you don't know, he's a wide receiver on the Atlanta Falcons, and he was caught betting on his own team. It said that he was placing wagers between $500 and $10,000. He was suspended. He's been suspended for the entire 2022 season, and he also forfeited $11.1 million of his salary. He was eventually caught using the geolocation, which every sports book now is using. So, and I chose this one because I think it shows, if people want to do it, they're going to. I mean, and it's as easy as that. So yeah. Next is the stakeholders, and the first one I chose is the NBA. They're kind of the whole reason this happened. They let it go on behind their back. Oh, and by the way, my ethical argument for this paper was that despite Tim placing bets and whatnot, I still think that the NBA was running an unfair league. I think it was compromised. I think David Stern at the time, he was only concerned with one thing, and that was making money and his TV ratings. So, like I said, despite Tim doing this at the time, I think that the NBA was still corrupt. So the NBA was the first stakeholder. The next stakeholder I chose was National Basketball Referee Association. And so there's actually a documentary on this, which came out a couple months ago. It's called Operation Flagrant Foul. It's on Netflix. And in that, Tim actually said at the time, like, his band of referees, it was like a brotherhood. They weren't allowed to gamble. NBA obviously has strict rules prohibiting their employees to gamble. But Tim said when him and his crew, they were on the road, they would often go to casinos and stuff. And it even got to the point where before games, an NBA game, there's 4 officials. They would wind up betting on themselves who would call the first foul. So like I said, despite Tim doing all this stuff, at the time at least, there was a lot of stuff going on that I think went under the radar. And then the last stakeholder, organized crime. All 3 relevant cases that I talked about involved organized crime. Obviously not Calvin Ridley, but the 2 before that. And so did this one. So the person that Tim was feeding the picks to was actually placing his bets within the mafia or legal sports books, which is, like it sounds, extremely illegal. And Tim actually did a interview with The Guardian in 2015, and he said, anytime you have a sporting event with a Vegas line to it, there's always going to be somebody involved in organized crime trying to get a hold of it. And I think that's true to this day. People are always trying to find an edge, and people, will go to great lengths to get any inside information that they can. Next is the theories. So the first one is psychological egoism, and this basically says that it's a part of our nature as human beings to act according to our own self-interest, and individuals are motivated to act by placing their own interests above those of others by the matter of course. So this relates to this case. Tim, obviously acting in his self-interest, he knew what he was doing was wrong. He said it multiple times in his documentary. He also said multiple times that he would just sit there and kind of think about it, and just he realized what he was doing was wrong. And he also said, this theory also involves said by making sacrifices now, greater personal advantages will occur later. So this also coincides with this case, because Tim also in the documentary, he said because he knew what he was doing was wrong, he was going to do it till the end of the season, make as much money as he could, and then cash out and be done with it. But obviously it never got that far. The next theory is conflict theory, and this is basically around the fact that society is a system of social structures, based on a system of social structures that are shaped ultimately by economic factors. And this kind of feeds into what I was saying, how the NBA wasn't an honest league. David Stern, like I said, only cared about his money and his TV ratings. Donaghy said when he was a young NBA or a young referee in the NBA, one of his first games, he actually called a foul on Michael Jordan. And if you don't know who Michael Jordan is, then I'd probably ask what you were doing in this class. But one of the greatest people to ever do it. But anyways, he called a foul on Michael Jordan, and during halftime, the other referees who had obviously been there longer came right up to him and said, "You don't call that on him." And he said that those were words from David Stern. Because people, they didn't come to watch Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan. They didn't come to watch him sit on the bench. They came to watch him play. So if they wanted their star players to gain a competitive edge, then that's exactly what was going to happen. Next is conflicting views. Because this is kind of a two-sided case, it's Tim or the NBA. The only real conflicting view I had was that Tim is solely to blame for this, and I do agree with that. But at the time after this happened, the NBA came out and said, "You can't fix a game in the NBA. It's impossible. Too many invested observers, referees, supervisors, coaches, players, owners, media, film would be too quick to complain if they saw something fishy." But like I said, it was never proven that Tim was actually fixing games. He actually ranked in the top percentile of NBA fishing statistics at the time. And yeah, he never fixed games. He was found to be placing bets on games that he was officiating. So take that as you will. But to this day, he stands by that he never himself fixed a game. And then some of the solutions I identified. The first would be to expand the rules, and this just means clarify and expand the rules that revolve around prohibiting NBA staff and players from placing wagers on sports, including specific rules for referees. Second one is tightening up the policy. This just means, regarding the distribution of information about referee schedules and assignments, because Tim had the master schedule of everything. That's why he was able to tell who he thought was going to win or lose the game by looking at that. Because he, like I said, it was a brotherhood to him. So he knew how his fellow referees, called games if they had problems with certain players, coaches. He knew how they were going to call the game. The third one is improve anti-gambling training and education opportunities, just making them more aware, stuff like that. The fourth is continuing to observe and do research on in-game referee performances. Try to spot any patterns to see if there's any scandalous activity going on within the games. And then the last and probably the most important one is to establish better partnership and communication methods with gambling operators. This is really important because in sports betting, when a lot of money is placed on one team, the point spread, which is how many points a team is favored to win a game by, when there's big money placed on those numbers, they will shift in one direction. So being able to realize when that happens would have been really important for them. And the positives and negatives of it, I wasn't really able to identify any negatives besides the fact if people want to do it, they're going to do it. There's not too many ways to stop that. But there are a lot of positives to this stuff. I mean, really, when you combine all this stuff, it's just, it creates a more ethically structured workplace. But yeah, that's pretty much the story on that. Like I said, I still think that despite what Tim was doing, I think the NBA was running a fixed league, whether they admit it or not. I think they were. And like I said, there is a Netflix documentary on this. It's called Untold Operation Flagrant Foul. Came out in a couple months ago. And if you want to learn more about this, it's really interesting to get his firsthand view of how things went, and also the FBI's firsthand view. So thanks.